Welcome to the EAA's Ford Tri-Motor Tour Safe Operations Training for Volunteer Ground Support. The key to success is to make it safe and make it fun. No matter how experienced an airman you are, or whether you don't know an aileron from a longeron, the following guidelines ensure a safe and fun experience for its passengers and its volunteers. Please help ensure that everyone has a wonderful, memorable experience by faithfully following our guidelines. All volunteers must wear a safety vest to work on the ramp. The vest signifies that you are an official member of the Ford Tri-Motor ground crew, and it authorizes you to be on the ramp while the aircraft's engines are running. It also lends you an aura of authority that helps passengers understand that your instructions ensure their safety. All ground crew members are expected to discipline themselves to always stay out of the propeller arc, no transgression zone. Even when the engines are shut down. No excuses, please. For example, if the captain has a question or needs something, signal a ground crew member to enter the aircraft to find out what he wants. Do not, under any circumstances, approach the window or otherwise step into the no transgression zone area, even when the engines are not running. To ensure your safety, always wait until the aircraft is side on before approaching it. Routine operations require a minimum of 3 positions: a starter, a step handler, and a safety briefer who also acts as ticket handler. A second special operation requiring a minimum of 4 positions may be used only in specific circumstances and will be discussed later in this presentation. Routine operations. Always chalk the aircraft each time on arrival. Never approach the aircraft until the propeller has completely stopped turning. While inserting the chalk under the tire, make sure it is the chalk and not your hand or fingers that will get caught if the pilot releases the brakes and the aircraft eases forward or aft. Remove the chalks by kicking the chalks free and then pulling them away from the tire before picking them up. This will avoid accidents, such as the aircraft settling onto your hand or fingers. Remember to always approach and leave the tire area from the rear of the aircraft or 90 degrees to the aircraft's fuselage, never forward. Be careful to avoid touching the engine's exhaust pipe because its edges are sharp, sooty, and can be very hot. The safety briefer position. Note that the safety briefer position may be combined with the ticket handler duties. However, as a standalone position, the safety briefer's duty is to provide the safety briefing to the passengers before each flight. The briefer's duties also include helping the ticket handler gather the passengers for the pre-flight briefing and checking the tickets for the correct flight number to assure that the right passengers are ready for the right flight. The safety briefer should provide the safety briefing to the flight's passengers at least 10 minutes before the preceding flight arrives. The briefer also has the option of providing a history or facts about the aircraft should he or she desire. All passengers must receive a pre-flight safety briefing consisting of the following elements: the operation and use of seat belts, the reminder to remain seated during the ride, that no smoking is permitted at any time, the location of the 3 emergency exits, the location of fire extinguishers, the location of life vests, a warning about the low ceiling mid-cabin and at the doorway. Please do not allow open beverage containers onto the flight. The briefer can use the prepared briefing sheet and read the information to the passengers. Seat belts. Demonstrate how to operate the seatbelt buckles by inserting the flat metal plate into the buckle to fasten it and lifting the flat metal plate to release the belt. This may seem unnecessary to the aviation savvy. However, lift plate buckles have not appeared in automobiles since the 60s and early 70s. We have seen many younger people fail in their attempts to release the buckle because they were pressing the buckle looking for a button release. Tell the passengers to wear the belt snugly over their hips, to stay seated, and keep the seatbelt fastened until the aircraft has returned and is parked. As safety briefer, you need to know that lap babies, children under the age of 2, may sit on the lap of an adult during the ride. But it is very important that you tell the adult not to fasten their safety belt around the child too. Just hold the child on their lap. This is to prevent possible severe abdominal injuries to the child should the aircraft come to an abrupt stop. There are 3 exits that may be used in an emergency: the main door to the aircraft's cabin, a hatch located in the ceiling just behind the cockpit. Ceiling emergency hatches may have slightly different designs depending on the aircraft. As shown here, a lift bar versus a button and knob release. The third emergency exit is located in the cockpit. There is a red handle in the ceiling of the cockpit's canopy, which, when yanked, will release the canopy for exit over the aircraft's nose. The onboard fire extinguisher is located on the floor on the aircraft's right side behind the co-pilot's seat. Some tri-motor models will have an additional extinguisher located on the wall in the aft cabin. The life vests are located in pouches under the seats. The briefing mentions the life vests when flights will be over and in the vicinity of lakes, rivers, seashore, ponds, sand, dirt, deserts, pastures. Yep, it's always mentioned. Warn passengers that the ceiling is lower where the wing box is located. Remind them to keep their heads down while moving through the aisle and as they enter and exit the aircraft. The ticket handler. The ticket handler position may sometimes feel like herding cats, but it is an important part of the team. The duties of the handler are to coordinate with the ticket sales personnel to determine when the flight will be dispatched and the number of seats sold for each flight. Gather and seat the passengers in the holding area 15 minutes before the flight is expected to depart. Check the tickets to make sure the passengers are seated for the correct flight number. Check with the ticket sales personnel for correct number of passengers if you have too few or too many passengers in the holding area or when boarding the plane. The flight's manifest can be referenced to determine which passengers should be on which flight. Make sure all passengers receive a pre-flight safety briefing. Identify the right seat passenger, if applicable, and arrange to have that person first in line to board. Provide booster seat cushions as needed. Collect ticket stubs. Update the flight status card. Notice that the tickets will have the flight number written on the stub and sometimes also the larger portion. The ticket flight number assignment must agree with the flight status card. In this example, flight number 12 is ready to be boarded, and the ticket number we see here is for flight 12, so all is well. Always check the tickets before the safety briefing is given to be sure that you have the correct passengers for your flight. Remove the stub from each passenger's ticket just before boarding. You take the small stub, and the passenger keeps the bigger portion as a souvenir. Count noses and ticket stubs. The number of ticket stubs must equal the number of passengers on the plane. When you are ready to send the passengers to the aircraft, instruct the lead passenger to walk toward the aircraft's door so that the others will follow. When a line handler is used during special operations, have the passengers follow the line to the handler. When the flight taxis out, give the ticket stubs to the lead ticket salesperson. Flight status flip cards are used to keep track of which flight is waiting to go next. The flight status cards should be hung in a prominent position so that you, the ticket sales personnel, and the passengers can keep track of what flight number is next for boarding. Here, flight number 12 is next to go. You are responsible for making sure that the flight number status is kept up to date. After each flight taxis out, you must make sure that the next flight number is displayed. For example, as soon as flight number 12 has taxied out, the flight status number needs to be changed to show that flight number 13 is the next flight to get ready to go. I recommend that you update the flight status card as soon as the flight taxis out, and then begin preparations for the next flight. Be careful. Do not allow passengers to approach the aircraft until it is parked at the gate and the propellers have stopped turning. The step handler position. The step handler is responsible for accurately placing the step by the door to assist the passengers to enter and exit the aircraft safely. When the step is placed correctly, it is easy to enter and exit the aircraft. Use the left corner of the doorway as your guide, and make sure the gap is no more than 4 inches wide. Don't center the step under the doorway because the downhill slope of the fuselage tends to cause the passenger to miss the step or lose their balance on the way out of the cabin, and a possible injury could result. With correct step placement, it is easy to step down. While passengers are boarding or exiting the aircraft, always secure the door in the open position using the hook latching mechanism on the door to fasten it to the fuselage. Do not prop it open with your body. You never know when you might have to suddenly leave your position to address an urgent issue. And if the nose engine is running, or there is a sufficient breeze, the door will slam shut on its own and hurt anyone between it and the doorway. Before shutting the door, stow the hook latching mechanism in its keeper. Some tri-motor models will have slightly different latching strategies. You don't need to use the handle at all to shut the door, because the door will shut easily with light pressure. Just give it a gentle shove and you'll hear a satisfying snack as it latches shut. This technique will save wear and tear on the handle attachment, and the door will be properly shut. Please do not slam the door closed. Cushions are available for smaller children or shorter passengers. Plan ahead. Have a responsible adult carry the cushion to the aircraft, and ask the adult to bring the cushion back to you after the flight. The starter position. The starter stays in front of the aircraft, that is, forward of its wings while it is being boarded, and guards the aircraft. The starter is responsible for assuring that all crew and passengers are clear of the aircraft before engines are started, communicates with the captain through approved hand signals, and alerts the captain to hazards such as vehicles, pedestrians, and other aircraft before signaling release to taxi. The starter stands at the apex of an imaginary triangle in line with the aircraft's wingtip. The starter's position is critical to his safety and the captain's ability to see his signals, not to mention the captain's peace of mind. The illustration on the left shows incorrect placement of the starter. He is too close to the cockpit. The illustration on the right shows the correct placement of the starter. Use the wingtip as your guide. You should not be closer to the cockpit than the wingtip. Good positioning means that the captain can easily see the starter's signals. Here, the starter is too close. It is hard to see his signals, and when moving from left to right, he will completely disappear from the captain's sight. This makes the captain very nervous. It makes me nervous. Does the starter see the prop? If he is signaling, it is difficult to see what the signal might be. Notice that this starter has correctly positioned himself in line with the aircraft's wingtip. Again, good positioning in line with the wingtip is a must. Before signaling an engine start, always look for feet. The presence of feet means crew and passengers are still milling around. Don't start the engines with folks still milling about. And don't start with the chocks still in place either. If this happens, signal the captain to shut down the engines, wait for the props to stop turning, remove the chocks, and start over. No exceptions. Never try to start the aircraft without the left seat captain in his seat. Engines are started in this sequence. First, the left engine, engine number 1. Then the nose engine, engine number 2. And last, the right engine, engine number 3. Keep your hands down by your sides until you are ready to signal. This will prevent miscues to the captain. The starter's hand signals must be clear. Clear hand signals are easy to understand and give the captain confidence in what you are doing. To begin, make eye contact with the captain. Point to the engine you want started and rotate your other hand from the wrist to indicate that movement of the propeller is safe. Maintain eye contact with the captain during all hand signals. When you are in the correct position, it is easy to maintain eye contact with the captain, and it is easy for him to see you and your signals, as you can clearly see here. Cleared to start that engine, Captain. Once engine number 1 is running properly, pick up the fire extinguisher and move to the aircraft's right side and position yourself for the start of engines number 2 and number 3. Remember to remain well clear of the no transgression zone as you make your way to the other side. Stay out of the propeller arc, no transgression zone, even when the engines are not running. Position yourself and use the wingtip as your guide. You should not be closer to the cockpit than the aircraft's wingtip. You will be able to make eye contact with the captain, and he will be able to see you. By following these guidelines, we will never have a close call with a propeller. This is an example of poor starter positioning. We are too close, well inside of the aircraft's wingtip, and cannot see the captain's eyes. If you can't see him, he cannot see you either. The remedy is to move to your left and back in line with the wingtip. When you are at the wingtip, the captain can easily look across the cockpit to see you. Remember, you are signaling the captain, not the guy in the right seat. Before you signal, wait to make eye contact with the captain, not the other guy. If the captain was looking our way, we could easily make eye contact with him. Ah, much better. Good eye contact with the captain. This starter is using good, clear signals for an engine number 3 start. He is pointing at the engine and twirling his other hand from the wrist to signal the captain to start the engine. The starter signals to the captain that it is safe to taxi. Only one of these signals is acceptable. The others are ambiguous and therefore unacceptable. Can you tell which one is correct and why? The single index finger signal is unacceptable because it could mean several things, such as, just a minute, one more passenger, A-OK, all clear, engine number 1, go ahead and start, go ahead and taxi. I hope you see the point. We don't use the thumb and forefinger OK sign or the thumbs up signal for the same reasons. This is the correct signal. A salute cannot be mistaken for any other signal. Always use the correct signal to indicate that it is safe to taxi. Other approved signals that you may need to use are the stop, stay there, don't move signal, the signal for the captain to shut down the engines, and the signal to look. It is your responsibility to watch for traffic and other hazards and alert the captain to their presence before you issue the safe to taxi salute. After the captain has acknowledged what you are pointing at, you may then give him the salute for safe to taxi signal. The captain is now responsible for avoiding any hazards. Remember that fire extinguisher you had to lug from one side of the aircraft to the other during the starting procedures? Well, the extinguisher is on hand in case of an engine carburetor fire during the starting process. Here is the Pratt & Whitney R985 carburetor. Although not prone to fires, if it is going to happen, the flames will come from here. Here is what to do if you see fire. First, plant your feet and don't move. Second, signal the captain that there is a fire by pointing at the engine with one hand and rapidly fanning your other hand back and forth, pointing stiff-armed to the ground. Your excited demeanor will also no doubt clue the captain in to what is transpiring. Third, signal the ground crew. And fourth, watch and wait. This is extremely important. Wait. Do not approach the aircraft until the captain abandons the cockpit and the propeller has come to a complete stop. A carburetor fire is normally extinguished by the pilot continuing to cycle the propeller. It is crucial that you not approach the engine while the pilot is still in the cockpit, because he may make several cranking cycle attempts before giving up. And believe me, you do not want to be in the way. Also, your approaching the engine prematurely may cause the pilot to cease attempts to cycle the propeller, and thus you may actually make a relatively minor situation very much worse. If the captain abandons the cockpit, signal to the ground crew to evacuate the passengers. Once the propeller has ceased turning, you may approach the engine from its rear or perpendicular to the fuselage. Pull the safety pin from the handle of the fire extinguisher and direct the propellant into the mouth of the carburetor, not the exhaust pipe. The ground crew must lead the passengers well away from the aircraft. Count noses and assure that all passengers and ground crew are accounted for. If all attempts to extinguish the fire fail, and the fire fully involves the engine, quickly move everyone far away from the aircraft in case of an explosion. Remember, the wing is a gas tank, and the engine is hanging underneath it. Call 911. Special operations. Managing risk during hot turns. A hot turn is when only the right engine is shut down for the loading and unloading of passengers. Hot turns are only initiated with the concurrence of the captain and ticket salesperson, and only when there are a minimum of 4 ground workers to control passenger movement. Hot turns incur a certain risk which must be mitigated by safe ground management and need. Do not execute hot turns when the aircraft must park with its door on the opposite side of passenger approach to the aircraft. Never chalk the aircraft during hot turn operations. Warning: ground crew must not approach the aircraft until it is side-on and parked. The safety line handler position. The safety line handler position is used during special operations and is essential for keeping the passengers away from turning propellers during loading and unloading of the aircraft. It is important to always keep the line up and taut. The line will be attached to a stationary object, such as a fence. The trick is to lean away from the line while you fiddle with the door. This will keep any stray personnel from moving to the front of the aircraft while you are busy and not watching. By using your body to block the door, you can easily keep the line taut, the door open, and look down to fasten the door open with its hook. The hook slips into a slot on the fuselage. Note that other tri-motors used in the tour program may have slightly different door latching designs. Always latch the door open. If you have to alter your position, the wind generated by the nose engine, even at idle, will forcibly slam the door shut, which could injure a passenger in its way. These are examples of poor line handling. The handler has allowed the line to sag. Don't think for a minute that a passenger won't try to step over it for a Kodak moment. Your job is to keep the passengers safe and away from the engines. These are examples of masterful handling of the line. The line is taut and waist high. When the passenger attempts to step over or under the line handler raises or lowers the line to stop the action. Passengers reliably take the hint. The ticket handler will tell the passengers when to proceed toward the aircraft. Warning: the ticket handler must not allow passengers to approach the aircraft until it is parked at the gate and the line handler has the safety rope up. Be alert and have the passengers ready to walk along the line toward the line handler with no unnecessary delay. A good rule of thumb is to start the passengers on their way to the aircraft when you see that the next to last returning passenger has reached the aircraft's doorway. Ideally, as soon as the last passenger steps off the step, your first passenger is already waiting at the door to enter. Hot turns are used to expedite the loading and unloading process so that passengers do not have to wait a long time for their flight. This advantage is negated if you fail to have the passengers ready to go by the time the flight returns. The tail guard and photographer position. The tail guard position is essential for passenger safety. The tail guard's primary duty is to keep passengers from walking around the aircraft's tail to the other side of the aircraft during hot turn operations. The tail guard is also expected to keep an eye on the operations as a whole and is alert for signals from the starter and other ground crew members. The tail guard may also act as a photographer as a secondary duty, by offering to take pictures of the passengers disembarking from the plane while the next group of passengers is boarding. When guarding the tail, do not allow passengers to walk around the tail to the other side of the aircraft during boarding and disembarkation. However, when the aircraft is completely shut down for extended periods between rides, passengers may be permitted to walk around the aircraft to its other side, but the ground crew must ensure that the passengers do not wander onto restricted areas of the ramp. The tail guard is expected to use good judgment when deciding where to position himself and whether or not it is safe to also act as photographer during hot turn operations. In most cases, a separate position should be designated as photographer and assigned to another ground crew member. Although this photo was taken while the aircraft was completely shut down and no safety line was necessary, you can see a volunteer acting as a photographer for the returning passengers, while the other ground crew volunteers are supervising the loading of the next flight's passengers. Kodak moments preserve the joy of a ride in a Ford Tri-Motor airliner. and the enthusiastic tri-motor captains enjoy sharing their knowledge and the history of these fine old aircraft with others. We hope that you too will come away with many excellent memories of your association with the Ford Tri-Motor passenger airliner, and we thank you for helping to make it a safe and fun experience for all.